folks, my name is Rena from Snailworks Crochet and welcome to my 2025 Yarn End Review. You know, some people talk about year-end reviews. I'm going to do a yarn end review. And to kind of make this a little bit more entertaining, I'm going to share this presentation that I made of things I've made as well as some yarn stats. This idea is kind of inspired by something that I did back in college, where at our end of semester parties every single year in our fencing club, we had this tradition called Fun Stats, where this one guy who was super into statistics would take all the analytics from our club that year and make a PowerPoint presenting things like the demographic of the people in our club, how many people were freshman, sophomore, junior, what days did the most people show up, stuff like that. This presentation will probably not be as in-depth. I kind of hope to nerd out a little bit in future ones, but we'll see how this is. But I will get started. Before I go into the statistics of my own makes, I want to show off my own makes. I have completed 3 blankets. Pictured there is my Serdar Halloween crochet along, but I've also completed a couple of baby blankets. One I actually gave to my sister-in-law. Another I just kind of ended up keeping for future babies in my future. And also this number does not include the blankets I've ended up connecting and donating for Warm Up America. Talking about that, I should probably do that next year. But, you know, regardless, I'll do a better job next year. And now moving on, I have crocheted 1 costume. Not like fully crocheted, because there are some people out there who do like intense crochet costumes, but this costume right here is my dragon cosplay for my Shrek group. I made the dragon hat by Alexandria Massey, as well as a shawl from a locally dyed yarn, and then I compiled that all together and became Dragon from Shrek, and it was great. And then I made around 50 scrunchies. I'm gonna be honest, that's not a complete number. After a while, I stopped counting. I roughly based that off of my how many scrunchies can I make in a day video. I think I had like 20 scrunchies in that video, and obviously throughout the rest of the year I made more, so I roughly estimated about 50 scrunchies. I also made about 50 coasters, so this is also kind of related to my how many coasters can I crochet in one day video, but also related is my April Showers Make May Flowers series, which was a short series that I did Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, where I rolled a dice. The dice picked my colors and determined what colors of crochet flower coasters I would make that day. It was really fun, and I kind of want to do that again, but you know, I made 30. And then I made a couple more in my how many coasters can I make one day video. So I roughly estimated 50. And then I made about 3 crochet bags. The 2 pictured in this slide are actually bags that I made for my Fate the Dice Saga series. And then a separate bag that's not pictured is a whip I finally finished after 2 years. So yes, those are my crochet bags that I made. And then I completed 2 tapestries. The Lava Lamp Tapestry was a pattern test for my friend Viney Maple, and the Hello Lucky Tapestry is the crochet pattern that I wrote for the Lunar New Year. And then I made about roughly 50 hats and scarves. I don't really have a proper count of this, admittedly, but I based that off of my donation challenge video. Next year I'll probably try and count that more, but I roughly estimated this time. And now to kind of go over my top 3 favorite makes of the year. And these are not in any order, but they mean a lot for a variety of reasons. For me, it's difficult to quantify if I like one over the other because I like them for different reasons. But my top 3 favorite makes of this year would be my Serdar Halloween crochet along blanket, my dragon cosplay, I was very proud of that, and my Hello Lucky tapestry. Again, I like them for different reasons. The Serdar crochet along is because it was really fun. Doing the crochet along was so fun because like all the Serdar crochet alongs are a whole community effort, and you could really see the community shine when doing these patterns. The dragon hat was really fun because I will say making the hat wasn't my favorite, but like the end result was so good. It's kind of become my statement piece. I also wore it again for Halloween at my office, and it was definitely a conversation starter. So it allowed me to show off my skills to the broader public. So that was fun. And then the Hello Lucky tapestry, while the actual tapestry itself is fairly simple, I am particularly proud of it because it is my first and probably only pattern that I've written. So I'm proud of it and happy about it for that reason. Now, let's go into the yarn data. So, just as a brief note, throughout this year, I have been keeping a running Google Doc of all of the skeins of yarn I used, meterage, yardage, whatever. I've also tracked how many times I went to different yarn stores and bought yarn, and I've also tracked how much I've spent on yarn. Now, I'm about to go into how much yarn I have purchased, and look, that number is shocking me too. I'm not proud of it. So let's get into it. So this year, I have spent $2,252.32 on yarn. And this is in US dollars, by the way, not like any other currency, just US dollars. That's a pretty big number. That's more than my rent. So I've essentially spent more than my rent's worth of yarn. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a lot. Now, for my yarn acquisitions, you can kind of see the spend per month on this chart right here, but I spent the most amount of money on yarn in January, spending $415.60 in January. I think some of that might have been linked to Joann's going out of business, but yeah, that's a lot. In terms of where I spent that money, the most amount of money I spent were at various local yarn stores, and I spent about $471.85 at local yarn stores. This is not just one local yarn store, it's like varying local yarn stores. I just kind of put it in one category just because there's a lot, I don't really go to one local yarn store that often. Followed by that, I spent about $466.51 at Hobby, which is online. And then afterward, I spent the most money at Joann's. The Joann's one doesn't surprise me specifically because I'm pretty sure anyone and everyone was spending all their money at Joann's when they were going out of business. So it was kind of my last hurrah at Joann's. I did not track my previous year of yarn spending, but I can guarantee you if I were to look at my spending habits of yarn acquisitions from 2024, I could probably tell you that most of my money went to Joann's. And if Joann's were still in business, that number would be higher. But alas, they are not, because rip Joann's. In terms of like how many times I visited each store, I went to local yarn stores the most. I bought yarn at local yarn stores about 7 times. So that can mean like I went to like 7 different local yarn stores, or maybe I just went to this one yarn store once and just kept going. And then afterward, the frequency of purchases were followed by Walmart and Joann's. Walmart makes sense to me because I would buy groceries from Walmart and then peruse the yarn section. So that makes sense why I'd probably buy yarn from Walmart. Especially nowadays, if you look by a Walmart supercenter and you primarily use acrylic yarn, they have a very good yarn selection. And obviously, I went to Joann's. I was going to Joann's pretty often before, but especially with the news of them closing, that has definitely skewed the results. Now, in terms of yarn usage, how much yarn did I use? The bar graph there is showing yarn used in meters. So I probably could have done yards. Honestly, it'd be about the same. But I think meters or yards would be more accurate than like grams, because yarn is sold by grams, but like in terms of how much you use, it matters more for meters. If you understand what I'm putting down, it means I crocheted more, if that makes sense. If I track it by like meterage or yardage versus weight. Now for the usage, I was actually tracking usage by completed skeins of yarn. So like if I finished a skein of yarn, like, and it's gone from my stash, that counts as yarn used. So it doesn't count partial skeins, for example. So if I still have like a half used skein of yarn, but I used like half the skein, I did not count that towards my yarn usage. So in the bar graph, there might actually be more yarn used, but that's not how I tracked it. It was just easier for me to count complete skeins. In terms of number of skeins used, I used 86 skeins total completed in the year of 2025. I used the most amount of yarn in August, and that makes a lot more sense because that month I was filming my donation challenge video for my 1-year YouTube anniversary. And in that sense, it was kind of a stash busting challenge. So I definitely busted the most stash in the month of August. And then in February, I'm not sure what I did in February that made me use 16 skeins of yarn, but I think I might have tried doing some stash busting then too. I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, I used the most yarn in August, followed by February. Now, in terms of the most used skeins of yarn, the most amount of, labels I had, it kind of all tied between 5 different yarns. So all 5 of these skeins, I used like equal amounts of, which I believe was about 5. It's either 5 or 6, complete skeins of yarn. So in no particular order, I used Juicy Couture Luxe Velour to make scrunchies, makes sense. I used the Sirdar Hayfield Bonus DK, which makes sense, especially since that was the yarn that was sent with the Halloween crochet along. And I essentially used 1 skein of each of the colors they sent me at minimum for crocheting that Halloween blanket. I also used a lot of Big Twist Petite, and the Big Twist Petite are like mini skeins of Big Twist acrylic. So that kind of makes sense. I also used a lot of Big Twist Jelly Bean, probably because I bought a lot of Big Twist Jelly Bean prior to Joann's closing, and then I remember using a lot of them for my donation challenge video. And then I used the Loops and Threads Charisma Solid, and that's like a bulky weight yarn. I made about 1 scarf with that, which is why I used up so much of it. So those are the most used skeins of yarn. That's the end of my little yarn presentation, and now I kind of want to go into some of my goals for 2026, and also just like reflecting on the year of 2025. So I actually pulled up the goals I had for 2025 right here, and let's see if I actually met any of these. So the first one says, release a pattern. In this, I put 1 tapestry and 1 not tapestry. Well, I released a pattern, and that pattern is up on my Ko-Fi shop and on Ravelry for free, by the way, for free. So I have completed the goal of releasing a pattern. I didn't complete the sub goal of like 1 tapestry, 1 not tapestry. I only did the tapestry pattern, but that's okay. Add other items to Etsy shop. Theoretically, I did add another item to my Etsy shop, but it was a scrunchie set, so I'm not going to count that as adding an item to my Etsy shop. So I kind of fell through on that goal. But honestly, I wasn't prioritizing Etsy, and low-key, I don't know if I want to keep it up. I'll still leave the 2 items I have on my Etsy shop in case someone wants to order them. I did get 2 Etsy orders though. That was pretty awesome. The third goal is to do a craft fair, which I did do, and you can watch those videos on my YouTube channel. I need to figure out how to reference that in video. Feel free to go ahead and watch those videos of how the craft fair went. And then I think I had a goal of getting monetized on YouTube. that did not happen. While I haven't watched my 2025 goals video, I'm like pretty sure in that video I wasn't expecting that to happen. That would be shocking. I think my current status to monetization on YouTube is that I basically have half the watch hours needed to get monetized. And then I had 3 other goals here where I don't know what I was thinking when I made these. I kind of low-key remember why, but also I know I didn't meet these goals. So the first one was crochet a sweater with bougie yarn. I have not done that. Funny enough, actually, I bought the yarn to do this, but I have not started it. So I do see the crocheting sweater with bougie yarn in my future. It just did not happen in 2025. Crochet a dress. I did not crochet a dress, but that might change next year or this year, who knows? Because I actually do have plans to try and crochet my own wedding dress. So stay tuned if you want to see more details on that. And then crochet flower bouquets. This one I remember making that goal because a friend of mine was going to get married and wanted crochet flower bouquets. And then she ended up getting married and not having a wedding. And she tells me that she's going to have a wedding. I don't believe it's going to happen until I see an invitation. Those were my 2025 goals. So let's kind of go into 2026 goals. And this time I kind of want to make them a little bit more vague than last year's goals. 1, to give myself some grace in case I don't actually meet them, but 2, I feel like if I keep it more vague, it's a little bit more realistic. The first goal I have is to crochet more wearables. I have this situation where I simultaneously have too many clothes and not enough clothes, and I want to fix that. Also, I've been inspired by my friend Slow Crochet, where she challenges herself to wear her crochet makes every single day, every so often. And I've been wanting to do a video like that, but I only have a total of 4 wearable crochet items, like, total. So I need to actually make more crochet wearables so that way I could potentially do that type of content. Because she's had a couple of videos where she tries to style her crochet pieces, and I just kind of love it. I find it so fun. So yeah, my first goal for 2026 is to crochet more wearables. Or knit. Knit counts too. Regardless, make my own wearables. The next goal is to reduce my yarn spending by 50%. Let's be real here. I know I'm going to be spending money on yarn, okay? Because I also am a victim of consumerism and I be shopping, okay? But seeing my yearly spending of yarn be like more than a month's worth of rent is kind of a lot. I know this is split over the year, but it really did not need to be that high. And I know I totally exposed myself, and that's perfectly fine. This is me on the internet, but let's try and reduce that a little bit. It's 1, in this economy, 2, I have enough at this point. I really have enough. My third goal is to use more premium yarns, which feels a little counterintuitive to my previous goal now that I think about it, because I actually don't have as much premium yarns in my stash, but I still would prefer to use more like wools versus acrylic. No shade to acrylic, but I kind of want to experiment using more wool in my handmade knit or crochet items. I'm not saying more natural fibers, I'm saying more premium yarns, which, you know, maybe I just phrased that wrong, I don't know. Regardless, it's kind of interesting because I actually have a really big stash of cotton in my yarn collection. I don't like it for wearables. Cotton is so saggy. That's my hot take. I don't like cotton for wearables because it just sags over time, which is kind of why I want to use more premium, and I guess when I say premium fibers, I mean like wool. I want to use more wool yarn. Maybe that's my goal. I want to use more wool yarn. I'm okay with like a cotton wool blend, or like, cotton silk blend, but I don't want to use just cotton, not because it's like inferior or something, it's because it just sags. And then my last goal is actually I want to try posting longer YouTube videos. So I will say this, I'm not necessarily the best at making YouTube content, but I will say when I did my Vlogmas challenge for myself, and granted, I only posted like every other day during Vlogmas, but every time I was uploading a video, I was looking at the runtime of each of the vlogs and I'm like, this is about the runtime of like my other videos. I don't know how I feel about that. Now, to be fair, I was posting vlogs, but like I feel like my bigger videos or the video topics where I put more work and effort into, I feel like the videos are kind of short and they could be longer, but I also struggle between the whole like, well, if it's too long, then no one will watch it, and then I would have put all this work into something that no one watches, but also no one watches my other videos too. I don't know, but I do want to try posting longer YouTube videos. Does kind of, at least to me, give off the impression that my standard videos are lazy, and to some extent they are. I feel like I could do more for the videos. I think that's kind of the heart of the goal, is to put more into the YouTube videos. Like, don't just like split things up for the sake of splitting things up. I want to invest a little bit more in the YouTube videos that I do make. Those are my goals for 2026, my crochet related goals. Now, in terms of personal goals, I don't really have any, so with that, that concludes the end of my yarn end review. Thank you for watching, and if you've made it this far, comment down below what are items that you made in 2025 that you were most proud of, and do you have any fiber related, yarn related goals for your 2026 year? Let me know down in the comments below. And with that, I'll see you next week. Bye!